So joining us all the way from Argentina today. And we also have one online from Zaccardi. And I believe we have Clive also from Zaccardi, who's based in Hong Kong. So 3 people online today. But what we'll do is we'll hand you over to Martino. I think you're going to take it from the beginning. Is that right? Yeah, we'll unmute you there, I think. Hold on. Let's just get you unmuted. Yep, lovely. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I will say good night because it's Friday night here in Argentina. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. Do you want me to start sharing the presentation right now?
Yeah, let's do that, and you can take us through it.
Okay. 1 minute. Okay. Well, first I would like to introduce myself. My name is Martín Di Stefano. I am agronomist and I am the head viticulturist for Zaccardi winery. I've been doing that for 10 years already. So I am not actually a winemaker. I work at the vineyards, which is the funniest place to work at. And I will try to guide you through these wines today, from a vineyard perspective. So I will try to introduce you a little bit into the Argentinian viticulture, into the Mendoza viticulture, and into the Uco Valley viticulture. So let's start with the boring part. Little bit of history. Zaccardi Winery is a family winery. Now it's in hands of the 3rd generation of viticulturists. It was founded in 1963 by Alberto Zaccardi, and he planted the first vines in the eastern part of Mendoza at that time. And his son, Jose Zaccardi, who is running the management of the winery today, is still working actively, and his grandson, Sebastián Zaccardi, is the chief winemaker, 3rd generation. And Sebastián is today somehow leading the Argentinian revolution in wine. He's a really innovative winemaker, putting the focus in the terroir, trying to reach wines with identity. I know now everybody's looking for that in wine industry, but 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that was really crazy for Mendoza. And he was leading that movement for a long while. And now we can say that we can see the fruit of that work. He likes to say that we make mountain wines. And that is not just a sentence. If you don't know anything about Argentinian wine, this is a good way to start. Argentina makes mountain wines, all the country. That is really, really strong, because I can say that 99% of the wines from our country are made with the influence of the mountain, which is really unique because it's a strong key of identity for our viticulture. What mountains? The Andes mountain, which is the highest and the most powerful mountain range in the southern hemisphere. This is a map of Argentinian wine region. I'm sorry about the boring geography, but it's just, I want you to understand a little bit where we are. You can see that most of the wine growing regions are by the west of the country. If you see, we have the Pacific Ocean here, then you have Chile, our neighbors, I'm sorry about that. And then you have these color stains. This pink area is the region that we call Cuyo, which is the most important wine growing region in the country, producing the 85% of the wine here. Then we have also some valleys in the north and some valleys in the north of Patagonia, all of them by the west of the country where the Andes mountain is. So everything we have, we owe to the mountain. All our vineyards are related to the Andes mountain. We only have 1%, less than 1% of our cultivated area in the country coming from areas close to the Atlantic Ocean or to the northeastern part of Argentina. So if you think in Argentinian wine and you can think in mountain wine, that's really, that's right. So if you come back to this, I don't know if you see the arrow in your screen, but you can find Mendoza in the center west part of the country. Now, this is the map of Mendoza. Mendoza is a desert, if you don't know the place. We don't have more than 200 millimeters of rain every year, so we live in a desert. We need to irrigate for everything, not only for the vines. We need to irrigate for living. So in this map, you can see how the Chile area is green because they do get the humidity from Pacific Ocean. Then if you go to the right part on the east, you see green again. That's the Buenos Aires area in the country. But Mendoza here in the west is absolutely gray. So when you see the landscape of Mendoza, is nothing but small bushes, no green trees, no green grass. It's a really dry desert landscape. But we have these 3 green spots that we call oases, because we have been using water from the rivers for centuries to be able to cultivate. So we have mainly 3 big oases in Mendoza. The biggest one is that from the south. I'm sorry about the Spanish words. It's big in terms of surface, but not in terms of viticulture. They plant fruit trees, olive trees there. Then you have the northern valley. That is the area surrounding the city of Mendoza. And then the smallest valley, the smallest oasis, is the Uco Valley, which is the westernmost and is the highest in elevation. So this is the map of the Uco Valley. The Uco is the hotspot today. Is the most exciting wine growing region in Argentina. All of the new projects, the new plantations, the new vineyards are going there because it's the highest in elevation. So we are going until 1,700 meters above sea level to plant vineyards, which is quite a thing, especially for this latitude. And I'm sorry about the names, but I want you to learn just a few of them. We have 3 sub-regions in the valley. In this map, you have the north to the right. So the northern Uco Valley is a place called Tupungato. Then you have another place called Tunuyán in the middle. And then you have San Carlos in the south. And we have 2 rivers in the valley. This one, the left one, is called Tunuyán River, and is the most important river for the viticulture in Argentina, because it's the river irrigating the most hectares of vineyards in all the country. And then we have another small river here, separating Tunuyán from Tupungato, called Rio Las Tunas. But please don't imagine this valley like one of your valleys. This is not a green valley. The classic landscape of the Uco is the giant mountains in the back, and then the desert, and only these 2 rivers. I will show you some pictures later. And in this map, you can see the black lines. Those are the elevation lines. This is really important to understand our climate. I'm sorry, I promise you that this will not be so boring all the time. It will get better when we start with the wines. You see in the map, the first altitude line is 900 meters. That is surrounding a small city here. That small city is called Tunuyán originally. And then you go up and you can reach 1,800 meters in the highest part of Tupungato. For you to know, from north to south, the valley is 100 kilometers long. And from east to west is 30 kilometers wide, approximately. So in 30 kilometers, we can go from 900 meters of elevation to 1,800. So the slope of the soil is quite high. And we have a big diversity of different altitudes. So we have many different microclimates inside the same valley. And I will talk a lot about that later. So when we put the names of the places on the map, we can see some crazy words like Gualtallarí, for example, and Paraje Altamira in the south, Los Chacalles, Los Árboles, San Pablo. Those are places, names of our appellations. Some of the wines we are tasting in a couple of minutes are coming from this area. I will try to explain you later. But the message I want you to get across is that this valley is plenty of diversity. Every single place has its own combination of altitude, microclimate, soil type, topography. So the identity of every place is really strong, and we can cultivate the Malbec, for example, all across the valley, and the wines will be absolutely different depending on where they are coming from. So this is the new viticulture that is going on in Mendoza now, trying to unveil the essence of every single place, trying to put Malbec on the label, but with a surname. What is the surname? The place. So it's Malbec from Gualtallarí, it's Malbec from Vista Flores, it's no longer Malbec from Mendoza. We are going deeper and deeper because we do have differences and we need to explore those differences. So far, so good. Liz, everything okay?
Yeah, everything perfect.
Okay, you please let me know. Okay, maybe it's time to grab the first glass of wine because I'm talking too much and I'm getting thirsty. So the first glass in the first flight is a Chardonnay 2018 on the range of wines that we call Zuccardi Q. Zuccardi Q is the first range of wine that we make in our winery. I want you now just to enjoy the wine a little bit, and I will explain the technical stuff of the wine in a couple of minutes. But I will start talking about mountain wines, and this is a good example of a mountain wine. I will come back to the wine later. So when we say mountain wine, it's because the influence of the mountain can be felt in the climate, in the water, and in the soil. So everything we have, we owe to the mountain. So we can say that we have mountain-driven terroirs. So this is a classic picture that you can see from the Uco Valley. You see the vineyard in the flat area, and then the giant mountains just 5 or 6 kilometers behind the vineyards. So why do I say mountain wines? Because the Andes mountain created our different microclimates. How come? The higher the elevation, the lower the temperature. So in the Uco Valley, if we go from 1,000 meters to 1,200 or 300 or 500, the average temperature of the air starts to go down. It gets cooler and cooler. So this Chardonnay is a good example of that. I will come back a couple of slides. Sorry. So this Chardonnay is coming from the Gualtallarí area. This green block here, right down the mountains, which is approximately 1,300 meters above sea level. So when we are there, we have a really cool climate with cold nights that can create this kind of white wine, which is not normal for Argentina, where you find the natural acidity kept, and you can feel the freshness, the fruitiness, but we don't find that buttery or greasy style of Chardonnay that is common for the rest of Mendoza. So when you go close to the mountain, higher in elevation, you start to find these styles of fresher wines. There is another factor. Why is Mendoza a desert? And that is how the landscape looks like. Because all the humidity coming from the Pacific Ocean, from west to east with the winds, the humidity gets stuck in Chile. They have all the rains. We have snow up in the Andes, and in our side, we only have dry winds with no snow or no rain. So Mendoza is a high elevation desert. We have really dry and clean air. We have no problems with fungus diseases at the vineyards. And the dry air creates a nice difference between day and night temperature. So it's really good to grow some kind of varietals of grape. The effect of the Andes mountain can be felt almost 300 kilometers away from the mountain. Of course, the closer you are, the stronger the effect. But even if you are at the middle of a country, the influence of the mountain can be felt. Look at the luminosity. Look at the how clean the sky is. This is one picture of one of our vineyards. That's 1,400 meters of elevation. At that elevation, the sky is yours. The UV radiation is really high, and that changes a lot of things in the physiology of the vine, especially for the red wines. Water. How the Andes provide us water? With the rivers. All of our rivers are fed with melting snow from the Andes. So we have normally now, in winter, we have the snow at the Andes, and then in springtime, the snow begins to melt down, and we have the water to irrigate. Remember that in Mendoza, everything is irrigated. We cannot cultivate the vine without irrigating. So the rivers for us are absolutely important. But the most interesting thing is how the mountains created our soils, because our soils are one of the strongest sources of diversity. 99% of the soils we have are alluvial soils. I don't want to get too technical, but this is what an alluvial soil is. Imagine a mountain with a slope. When you have water or melting ice or whatever, all that water will go down according to the slope of the soil. If the slope is really high, the energy of the water will be high also, and it will carry down all kinds of materials like particles of sand or silt or clay, pebbles, stones, and really big rocks. And when I say big rocks, I'm meaning like 30 tons rocks. So all of the soils in Mendoza are alluvial soils. The closer to the mountain, the more heterogeneous the soils are. The closer to the mountain, the bigger the stones. So this is a picture of our Piedra Infinita vineyard that is 12 kilometers away from the mountain, and we find 10 tons rocks, 20-ton rocks all around the vineyard. It's crazy. But the key is that alluvial soils are extremely, extremely heterogeneous. So we can have many different soil types, even inside the same vineyard, even inside the same parcel. So I will try to explain you that with other glass of wine, if you like. We can go to the glass number 2. I know that you will ask a lot of questions later. The glass number 2 is a Cabernet Sauvignon from the same range, the Q range, and is coming from a really special vintage. It's 2013. 13 was the last dry, warm vintage in Mendoza. Was a classic Mendoza vintage, but 14, 15, and 16 were really cold and rainy. So the 13 is a good example of a vintage from a real mountain desert. This Cabernet Sauvignon is a blend from two different areas. Both of these areas are shown in this picture. Half of the grape comes from the left part of the picture, from this light blue area. There is a town called La Consulta, 1,000 meters of elevation. The other half comes from Guatallari in Tupungato, in the right light blue area. Those light blue shapes are alluvial fans. I told you that all of our soils are alluvial soils. Well, when we have an alluvium, like in this picture, the shape that we find in the soil is called alluvial fan. All the surface under this alluvial fan has materials in the soil brought from the same origin. In this case, we have the two biggest alluvial fans from the valley, those related to the two rivers. So on the left, we have the alluvial fan from Tunisian River, which is really, really big and powerful. And on the right, we have the alluvial fan from Las Tunas River. So the soils in the two areas are different, with different geology, and inside each one, we also have a strong heterogeneity. For the following, the two following glasses, the blend is the same. It's Cabernet Franc from the first Tunisian River alluvial fan, and Cabernet Sauvignon from the Tunisian River and the Las Tunas River alluvial fan. I will show you now some pictures of some soils. This is one example of how the soil looks like in the middle, in between the two alluvial fans. Deep, sandy, loamy soil, nothing really interesting in that. But if you go to the left one, Las Tunas, the Tunisian one, this is what you see. You see all the alluvial stone in the soil profile. Everything is white because the stone is covered with calcareous. And if you go to the other alluvial fan, this is what you see. A different composition in the soil with a material up here in the topsoil, a really rare material we call taliche, which is a layer of clay cemented with calcareous. So you have three different examples of soil variation in the two alluvial fans and in the middle, just to give you a short example of how the soils can change.
Martin, just with the Chardonnay, what oak, was there any oak used to produce the Chardonnay?
The oak? Let me check. The fermentation is half of the grape in concrete tanks, the other half of the grape is in old oak barrels. We do the fermentation there, and then we put all the wine just in concrete tanks. We don't want to mask the grape with oak. We know that the Chardonnay needs a little bit of oak to increase the structure of the wine, but we don't want to cover the fruitiness. Actually, the treatment is more or less the same for all the range. The Chardonnay is the only fermented a little bit in oak. The reds are fermented in concrete, but we use more or less 50 to 70% of the wine after fermentation. We put it in concrete and the rest in oak for this Q range.
Okay.
So the Cabernet Sauvignon is the same. It's concrete fermentation, and then is 30 to 50% depending on the vintage. It goes to oak barrels, 500 liters barrels, not the classic 2 to 5 liters, and then the rest in concrete.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is an example of one of the materials that we have in the soils. If you break, for example, one of these stones that you see them white outside, when you break them, you see that inside the stone we have granite. So we have granite blocks covered with calcareous, which is really unique from some areas in the valley, especially from those areas in these big alluvial fans. When you are inside those areas, you can find this mixture of granite and calcareous material in the soil, which is geologically really unique. And it's interesting how the roots create a surface and absorb all the minerals from the soil in that area. So we can find a really nice mineral texture in the wines when we have these materials in the soil. And that is the mother material from that calcareous. You see this white coverage here in the stone. That coverage came, and this is a crazy long story, came from pieces of limestone that we have up in the Andes. What we have in the soil is not limestone, it's this mix of granite and calcareous. But the limestone is up in the Andes, and in those blocks of limestone, we can find the fossils from the Pacific Ocean, because the Andes range is more or less 150 millions of years old. Before that time, there was no mountain, and the Pacific Ocean was covering all the Mendoza area. So we can find at 4,000 or 5,000 meters of elevation pieces of old shells fossilized in the limestone. Okay, do you want me to go to the third wine?
Yeah, you can do. I think everyone seems okay with that. Yep.
Okay,
that would be
let's go.
good.
It will be really nice to compare the two different vintages. The glass number 3 is also the Cabernet Sauvignon Q, the same range, the same varietal, but now we will taste the 2015 vintage, which was one of the rainiest and coldest vintages in Mendoza in the last 10 years. The composition of the blend is the same. It's half of the grape coming from Tupungato and half of the grape coming from La Consulta. Cabernet Sauvignon is not an easy grape to grow in Mendoza. You must have heard that we are growing more Cabernet Franc instead of Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's because Cabernet Franc seems to be adapted better to our climate than Cabernet Sauvignon. The problem with the Cab Sauvignon is that it's really easy to overripe under our conditions. And if you overripe the Cabernet Sauvignon, you get these dry tannins, you lose all the green and the bell pepper character, and you start to find this marmalade and this overripe fruit that we don't like. If you take the 2013, you will find more riper fruit. But in this 15, this is like the Cabernet Sauvignon that we would love to make every year if it was possible. Fresher, a little bit more, with more spices and herbs, not overripe, not dry. This is like a good example of how the Cabernet Sauvignon can be in the medium elevation of Euco Valley.
It's really interesting, Martin, I think, to try the two side by side. And I think also, you know, to see the 2013, so the age on it, and just for everyone's benefits, that's, I think, the last bottles of 2013. It was just a little treat we added in to show something with a little bit of age. So, yeah, the 15's looking really good. The 13's showing a little bit of age, though, yeah?
Yeah. We find that in the Cabernet Sauvignons, they get a little bit tired after some years, especially when you harvest in the lowest part of the valley where the natural acidity is not that high. I have to mention that all the acidity of the wines is natural. We don't add anything to them. So in a warm season, if you don't have that high natural acidity, the cab can get tired after 5 or 6 years. But the 15 is really bright and alive now. I think that this is our favorite so far.
Do you think that also is just the vintage conditions in 2015 more favoring the style of wine you like to make?
Yes, actually, it's crazy because 14, 15, and 16, they are known as bad vintages in Mendoza for the common of the winemakers because they were cold, they were rainy and humid. But in our style, we love them because we could get easily this freshness, this vertical sensation in the wine, this good acidity, this good bright fruit without doing anything. So when we went to 17, which was warm again, it was a challenge for us because we needed to start thinking again how to manage the harvest point to keep the freshness. I think we learned a lot in the 15 and 16 seasons because we learned how to take advantage of the natural acidity and how to manage the ripeness point and how to harvest a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think because Martin, 2013 was quite well rated in Argentina, but I think it's a warm vintage, but it got some good reviews. But I think this shows us, you
The
shouldn't.
diversity.
Yeah, and you shouldn't necessarily just buy the good vintages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of styles.
We've just had a question about the alcohol levels on the wines. Do you know what the alcohol is on these?
Yes, the Chardonnay is 13%, and the Caves are 14.5, the glass number 2, and 14, glass number 3.
Excellent.
So the alcohol is a little bit higher in the 13.
Mm.
Do you have any good comments on the Caves or not?
Yes. Everyone is very much liking the 2015. I think we've got a lot of very positive comments for that. Okay. And now we've got, someone that is telling us they like the 2013, but has also said they are from Argentina. And we have some nice comments on the age of the 2013 as well. And I think it is, it's unique to be able to have a wine that is clearly showing mature characters. But, often we drink the wine too young and we don't enjoy those characters. So, yeah.
You're right.
No, very,
We're always drinking the wine just too early.
We do. Too much of a hurry. Yeah. Okay.
Let's go to another.
Sorry, we have someone else from Argentina also on the tasting who likes the 13.
Hola.
Perfect.
It's a pleasure.
Hola.
Un gusto.
Igualmente.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hola, Martín.
Hola, somos varios. Encantado.
Somos
Al fin
varias.
tengo compatriotas.
Flor y Agustina, somos tres acá que estamos haciendo este wine tasting.
Bueno, bienvenidas entonces. Mejor porque tengo el inglés un poco oxidado, así me siento un poquito más acompañado. I'm sorry for that.
Perfecto.
Okay, let's go to the next glass of wine, because we've been talking a lot and we haven't tasted any Malbec yet, and it cannot be. So Malbec is 17. 17 was again a warm season, not as warm as 13, but more or less similar. But we had learned, by that time, we had learned how to manage the ripeness point, how to manage the date of harvest. The most important thing is to determine perfectly well the day of harvest. If you harvest 2 or 3 days later, you can lose all this freshness we are looking for, especially with the Malbec. Malbec is really sensitive to that, and especially in some areas, as I will show you now. Look at this picture, please. I told you before that alluvial soils are really heterogeneous, but why is that? If you look at this picture, you see the mountain in the back, and you can see how the soil, the alluvium was spreading out and down, and you see like dark stripes or dark lines in the soil. If you study the soil composition in those lines, you will find that the soil changes according to that pattern. So that colored area is our Piedra Infinita vineyard. Actually, that thing in the middle is the winery. And we found that the alluvial soils are a source of heterogeneity, and heterogeneity is not a good thing, especially if you are a viticulturist, because you don't want your vines to grow in different ways. All the viticulturists want the vines to be homogeneous, because we need to make decisions of when to irrigate, when to harvest, how to prune, all kind of decisions, and you cannot decide for one vine to other vine because we have millions of them. So heterogeneity is not a value, is not a positive thing. But if we know what is the source, the reason for that heterogeneity, we can create some strategy to work with that, to identify the differences and to treat them in a different way. So when we do that, we convert heterogeneity into diversity, and diversity, it is a good thing for us. So these colors in the picture is the soil map of our Piedra Infinita vineyard. And this is an explanation of how the alluvial soils in the Uco Valley behaves. If you look at the chart on the right of the screen, you will see like a soil picture with the different layers and the colors. The top layer is like a wave. That top layer is the sand. The sandy topsoil is sandy with a little bit of silt, sandy loamy. Then you have this second layer of white stone, the same granite covered with calcareous that I showed you. And then at the subsoil, we have the classic riverbed stone. But if you pay attention to the colors, you see that if you, for example, take the blue colors, you will see that we have a shallow topsoil, but then a really thick layer of stones. But if you go to the orange colors, it's all the opposite. It's a really wide and thick topsoil and not too many stones. So now you go to the map on the left and you can see how the soil changes. For you to know, this is a 40 hectares farm. We have every polygon is a parcel. This parcel on top, the one with the SuperCal word, is 7 hectares, and we have 7 different soil types in the same parcel. So we have planted Malbec there, and we no longer say that we have Malbec. We have 7 different Malbecs there, because Malbec is a variety that is really transparent. It's really honest to show the differences in the terroir or in the micro terroir as we have here. So when you have this soil variation and you can identify the soil variation, you can transform that heterogeneity into diversity. What do? We harvest all the vineyard by soil type. We don't harvest like all people do, just starting at the first row and ending at the last one, all the parcel the same day. We go and we harvest first the blues and then the greens and then the yellows, according to how the ripeness moves in the different soils. When you do that, you can harvest your Malbecs from the calcareous soils, and you can have them separated from the sandy soils or the loamy soils or whatever. And you open your colors, and you suddenly have 50 different Malbecs coming from the same vineyard. So this Q Malbec is a good example of what we can do in the Uco Valley with this freshness and these stony soils, creating this mineral character.
It's a brilliant wine, Martin. I love the freshness in it. I think, you know, if anyone's got some preconceptions on what Malbec is, that blows it out of the water and reminds you that Malbec can be just an absolutely extraordinary wine and produce very top level wines. You know, I think we unfortunately have had Malbecs here in New Zealand in the past that have been at the value end of the market only. And you know, we need a re-education on Malbec in New Zealand, and that certainly is a really good place.
So do we. So do we.
Yeah.
Well, that is a good point, because everybody has in its mind an idea of Malbec, and everybody thinks that Malbec is that. It's a fruit bomb, it's a chewy wine, it's a heavy, dense wine, and Malbec can be too many things. We can create really elegant Malbecs, fine Malbecs with a nice structure instead of concentration. When you go to some areas in the Uco Valley, you go to high elevation areas with cool climates, and you can study your soils, and you can start relating all the things, all the variables. You understand that Malbec is 100 things, it's 1,000 things. So this is the kind of Malbec that we want to create. This is a perfect example of an Uco Valley wine. If you ask me, okay, give me just one example of Uco wine, I will say you the Zuccardi Q Malbec, because it represents all that the valley gives you. The fruit, the freshness, this little bit crispy character, is bright, is pure, not too oaky, not too ripe. It's just another face of a Malbec. But if, now that we are talking about Malbec, it would be nice that if you go to the first glass of the flight number 2, which is the Concreto, because I have a nice story to tell about that wine now.
So what we might need to do, Martin, is just give everyone a couple of minutes to finish the wines they have, or to pour 4 new glasses. And then does everyone need a couple of minutes? Is that what I'm thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's sort of nodding and saying they will change their glasses. Just a question while we're doing that, Martin, is similar oak and concrete for the Q Series Malbec, isn't it?
A little bit less oaky than the Cabernet Sauvignon. In the Malbec, we use practically no oak. Is no more than 20 or 30% of old oak barrels, no more than that. The Cabernet Sauvignon, we do use the oak because, you know, the Cab is something more classic and it gets along well with the oak. But the Malbec, we prefer the Malbec to be bright. That's why we use the concrete tanks for everything. Fermenting and aging.
And Martin, the concrete tanks are quite specific, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Do you want me to show you a picture of those?
Sure.
Give me 5 minutes. I have some pictures in the presentation. Give me 5 minutes, please.
I was going to say, you'll get there. I'm just jumping ahead.
Okay. Don't spoil my presentation, please.
No, I'll calm down. Okay, let me just check with everyone. Is everyone ready for the next flight, or do you need yeah, we've got some thumbs up there.
But please keep, I want you to keep the 2 Malbecs side by side, because it's a nice comparison.
Okay, so if you can.
The Q Malbec and the Concreto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So everyone's ready when you are there, Martin.
Okay, so you have the glass number 1 of the second flight. That is called Zuccardi Concreto. Concreto is the Spanish word for concrete. This was the first wine we made that was 100% fermented and aged in concrete. So no oak at all at this bottle, not even 10%. Only concrete. But there is another story. If you look at this map, the Concreto is harvested only in the blue patches. So this is a super specific soil type driven wine. We only harvest the stoniest and the most calcareous blocks in our vineyard in Paraje Altamira, in the Finca Piedra Infinita, to make this wine. This is a single vineyard wine, but it's also a single soil wine. So this is another face of Malbec and shows how different Malbec can be. What we tried to do was to emphasize the texture that we can get in the wine over these calcareous soils, the texture in the tannin, that thing that somebody would call minerality. We try to emphasize that. So we only harvest really early, first week of March, in the blue spots, stony calcareous soils, fermented in concrete, whole bunch fermentation, aged in concrete. That's all. So this is our idea of the purest Malbec from calcareous soils in the Uco Valley. So I wanted you to check the difference between the 2 Malbecs.
Martin, some technical questions for you on the winemaking, if you have the information there. just we have some interest in the fermentation temperature, how you manage the cap and the maceration and the yeast.
Okay, yeast. I will do my best. Remember that I am not a winemaker. I'm so sorry. All
No,
the yeast
that's
is
fine.
natural
That's
yeast.
fine.
Yeah, guys, this is much easier than you think. Is in the concrete fermentation, in the concrete tanks, you can actually control the temperature because our tanks, the wall of concrete is like 15 centimeters wide, and the tanks have a pipeline of water inside the wall, so you can refrigerate the tank. If it gets warm, you can cool it down easily. It's much easier than everybody thinks. Then the yeast, everything is natural yeast. We don't use any commercial yeast. And what was the other thing? Maceration.
Yeah,
we try not to.
Sorry, cap management and maceration.
Again, please.
Cap management and maceration. So do you punch down?
Yes, we try. Well, that depends. We don't have a recipe. It depends. And again, this chart of soil is a good explanation. If you use grapes from the stony soils, the natural amount of tannins in the skins is too high. So if you, for example, do 3 délestages per day, you can over-extract those tannins. So the recipe is related to the natural amount of tannins depending on the place and depending on the soil. We do mostly pillage and délestage. We like to treat the skins really gently, softly, because we don't want to over-extract. And twice a day, 3 times a day, first 2 days of fermentation, and then we go once a day slowly. But if you go, for example, to the deepest soils areas with lower tannin structure, you need to macerate more and you need to extract more. So you can do, for example, 3 délestages per day during the first 4 or 5 days of fermentation, and then you taste. And when you see that you have reached the amount of tannins you like in the wine, then you stop a little bit. It's not easy because we have a lot of diversity inside the winery, but it's more or less like that.
Excellent, thank you very much. We've got some excellent comments on the Concreto, and a lot of people are saying that they love it, and that there's increased richness and roundness from the Concreto. Mm-hmm. With still a fresh, lovely mouthfeel, and it's very silky. And the person who asked the technical questions said that was awesome.
Well, thank you. Concreto is a perfect example of how strange Malbec can be, how different Malbec can be. If we sometimes put the Concreto in a tasting and we don't tell that it's Malbec, and we ask people and they say all kind of crazy things, but not always Malbec, because it's hard to tell that it's Malbec. It's actually Malbec with the surname. It's Malbec from Paraje Altamira. It's Malbec from the southern Uco Valley. It's Malbec from calcareous soil. So it's a really specific kind of Malbec. So you need to stop thinking about Malbec in the way you used to do. You need to open your eyes and to look at Malbec as the perfect vehicle to show the differences. What's next? Okay, vineyard pictures. I told you that heterogeneity was not a good positive thing, but if we can create strategies at the vineyard to identify the reasons for heterogeneity, we can treat them differently and we can create diversity. Diversity is richness, because diversity is things to choose from. When you have a diverse vineyard and you can manage that. You can harvest different colors, you can harvest different soil types, different soil slopes, different microclimates, and you can create many different wines, even inside the same vineyards. Those are pictures of one of our vineyards in the northern Uco Valley. This is in Gualtallarí. Look at how beautiful the landscape is with the mountains in the back. Look at the soils. In the left, this is an example of the stone covered with the calcareous. That guy over there is me. And here in the right, you have a soil profile with that material that I mentioned before that is called caliche. Caliche is a layer of clay and calcareous. And this is what I mentioned when I said desert. This is what I mentioned, what I mean. This is a natural landscape in Mendoza. And it's beautiful how the vineyard gets in the middle of a desert, in the middle of a mountain. So all of these pictures are from Gualtallarí. And with these pictures, we can go to the following wine, which is the José Zucardi, number 2 in the second flight. This is a really special wine, José Zucardi. Remember that José Zucardi is Sebastián Zucardi's father, so he's the actual director of the winery. He didn't want to have a wine called after him, but Sebastián, well, this is like the present, the gift that Sebastián made to his father. And this represents for us our special personal wine. It's a blend of 95% Malbec from Paraje Altamira. So it's 95% Malbec from this vineyard, harvested by soil type, and 5% Cabernet Sauvignon from this vineyard with these soil types. So Malbec is a nice, round, sweet variety, but sometimes lacks a little bit of backbone, a little bit of structure. So we add this 5% of Cab Sauvignon from this extremely calcareous soil to improve the structure of the wine, and that makes the difference. In this case, we ferment in concrete, and then we go to oak foudres. So 100% of the wine goes to oak foudres, 2,500 liters for 6 to 10 months, depending on the season. This is again from the 15 vintage. Remember the rainy and cold one.
Wow. Martin,
I like
yeah, definitely changing everyone's perception, I would say, of Malbec with that wine.
Look, when I say diversity, this is what I was meaning. We want diversity. We want to create different things. We want to have unique wines. The engine of all of this wine is a Malbec, and look how different Malbec can be. That's why we need to go deep in knowing our places, in knowing our soils, our climates, in knowing our terroirs. This is the new way. What do people say about this, José Zucardi?
We have a question on it. What do you think, or how long would you put this in your cellar for? How long would you age it for?
In the foudres or in bottle?
No, if you were going to put the bottle in your cellar.
Ah, okay. I say personally that it can live 10 years easily, especially this, at least 10 years, especially this this vintage. I will give you an advice. if you have the opportunity of buying wines from UCO 15, 16, 18, and 19, please do, and put a lot of bottles in your cellars for 10 to 15 years, because the natural acidity of those vintages and the natural amount of tannins will allow those wines to live really, really long time. 10 to 15 years, I say.
Okay, and what is the, thank you for that, what is the average vine age of the grapes that go into the Jose?
Well, the Malbec is more or less 15 years old vines, and the Cabernet is a little bit younger, is like 10 years old vines, more or less, approximately.
Okay, okay, and
sorry, you need to know that we don't have really old vines in the Uco Valley. The Uco is like a new area in Mendoza. The only place that where we can find old vineyards is in the southern part of La Consulta, just a tiny little spot in the Uco where you can find 100 years old vines, but the rest is like 20 years old, 15 years old, more or less.
Okay, so the grapes that went into the Concreto,
yes,
what sort of age would they have been? Similar, or?
The vines were planted in 2009 in that vineyard, so it's 10 years old.
Okay.
Now 10 years old. Young vines, you can create quality with young vines. There's no problem with that.
Excellent. And just some of the comments for you on the Jose is we've had someone say, wow, wonderfully smooth wine. There's a comment here on the tannins and the purity, that it definitely benefits from the Cabernet and the oak, but lots of positive comments.
Thank you. That's good. It's a really nice wine.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, okay. Let's go back a little bit. Again here, I love this map. It's because I made it. But, this is, I show this map a lot because this is our key to work. It's our key to understand how the vines behave on different situations. The following wine in the flight is the Finca Piedra Infinita 2014. Finca Piedra Infinita is the single vineyard for this vineyard. We are actually making a lot of wine from this vineyard, but the Piedra Infinita is like the vineyard wine. We try to express all the identity of this farm in this bottle. To do that, we make a blend of the different colors, trying to rebuild the equilibrium, the natural equilibrium of the soil in the wine. So this is again 100% Malbec, but in this case, it's a blend of 10 different micro parcels from light blues to light greens. So medium soils and stony soils, trying to have this good structure, good tannin structure coming from the stony calcareous soils, but also to have this fineness and this velvety body that comes from the medium depth soils. Is our idea of a really elegant and fine Malbec. And yes. The 14, yes, tell me.
Sorry, a question. Are you fining or filtering the wines?
I'm sorry, are we?
With the winemaking, do you fine the wines or filter them? So what finishing before you bottle?
Before bottle? No, nothing here, nothing.
Okay.
We don't filter, we don't put anything, just from the foodrest to the bottle. For this wine.
Yes. Mm. Wow.
Thank you.
Someone has just said that this is heavenly.
Whoa. Thank you for that. I wasn't expecting that much. But I like the warmth.
Mm.
Well, this is a really fine wine. You know that the Harvest 2016 reached the 100 points from Robert Parker's this last year. So we were really proud of that because it was the third wine from our country reaching that score. We don't believe in scores, but it's, at the end of the day, it's a good thing too, because it's a recognition to this wine, because this is one of the big wines from this country, one of the great wines from this country. It's a good example of how high the Malbec can be.
Mm. And how long do you see that, like how long would you put that in the cellar for?
This one?
Yeah.
Again, 15, maybe 20 years. It's really young now. It's really young. I would buy a case, maybe two, and I would drink one bottle every year if I was you. No, I think 15 to 20 years easily.
Okay.
Okay, meanwhile you are enjoying the wine, I will show you more pictures. Well, I had a wine part here, but we've been talking a lot about this. I want to show you some pictures of the winery. Well, this is another picture of the same vineyard. This is the Piedra Infinita vineyard. This is how it looks like with the mountains in the back. More soils, that. So this is our winery. That is the Zucardi Valleduco winery. Is in the middle of a Piedra Infinita vineyard. Piedra Infinita means infinite stone in Spanish. It's easy to understand why. The soil is absolutely stony and everything that we have around is stone. So you can see how the garden, the park of the winery is built with the stones of the place. That is the entrance to the winery. Some pictures. It's a beautiful place. This is what you see when you get to the winery. And those are the concrete tanks we are using. There was a question about the temperature control, so you can see how the pipelines go inside the concrete walls to control the temperature. They are really comfortable to work with. Those are amphora, everything in concrete. The most beautiful thing is the size. Those are 3,000 liters big. We have 3,000, 5,000, 7,000. So really small tanks, which is good to be able to ferment the small patches of diversity that we are bringing from the vineyard. That's Sebastian Zucardi saying hello. And those are the, this is our oak cellar. You see the big fooders in the back, and then the barrels are 500 liters barrels. That's the kind of oak we use. Not too many.
Great. Martin, we've just had a question on why concrete over stainless steel?
Good question. Because it's better. Because we have tried different materials. We have, I didn't tell you this, but we have a research and development area inside the company. I started working there in early 2010, and one of our first research papers was about fermentation materials. So we used to make trials putting the same grape to ferment in different stainless steel, concrete with epoxy paint, concrete without epoxy paint, oak, plastic, fibers, whatever. And there was always a good difference in the concrete tanks because the control of temperature is better, because the temperature is more stable inside the tank instead of the stainless steel, because the porosity, you have pores in the wall. So once the fermentation is over, you can age or you can save or do a maceration inside the tank, and you have really small amounts of oxygen getting in, helping to get the tannins more stable and the color more stable. Actually, you can age the wine there instead of putting the wine into an oak barrel, and you will have a similar micro-oxygenation process without the aromatic impact of the oak. Once you start walking with a concrete, there's no coming back. It's a one-way road, and there is no epoxy paint inside. It's the raw concrete, pure concrete. We don't want to put the grape in contact with anything else. Besides that, there is a philosophical answer. What is concrete made of? Cement, lime, and sand, so minerals. So you are putting, again, the grape that came from the soil in contact with the minerals from the soil. Stainless steel is something strange that came from a factory, so we don't want to put our grape in contact with that. That's the reason.
That's a great answer, thank you. And you also, you do have some amphora there,
yeah.
Don't you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And am I right that the concrete that you've used, you've taken from where you built the winery, haven't you?
Yeah. Yes. All the concrete, the sand and the lime was taken from the soil of the area where we built the winery. And the water to building that is the water from the Tunisian River. So when we built the winery, when we started building, we decided to use all the material from the place. We tried to be really respectful and conservative with that. It's really nice. We think that this is more unique. It's even more unique. And the shape of the amphora is because the amphora is smaller than the tank. Look at this shape. This is like a cone with a cylinder. That size you are looking at is 5,000 liters. When you want to do it smaller, the ratio between the width and the height is not that good. So you need to switch to the amphora or egg shape. That's why the concrete eggs are becoming more popular today, because it's a good shape for a good size. So you can have 3,000, 2,000, and 1,000 liters tanks, really small.
And Martin, having seen them, the picture doesn't do it justice, because how many of them are there? Do you know how many are lined up?
Yes, we have, let me remind, there are in total 75 tanks in total. We have 18 amphora, and the rest are of this cone and cylinder. But 75 in total. The capacity of the winery is up to 1 million liters.
It's amazing.
It's a nice place.
Your winery has been voted again the best place in the world for wine tourism. And
yes,
congratulations.
Thank you.
All we need is our borders open.
Yeah. Well, we are missing the visitors these days.
You would be.
Look at that. This is well, I think that we can, with this picture, we can taste the last two wines, or the last one, because some of the guys have one, some the other.
Okay.
I have both. I'm lucky.
So just for everyone, in terms of what wine you've got, the little bottle you had arrive, if it had a red label, you have Altamira, so the first name on the tasting sheet. If it had a white label, you have Tupungato, so the second name on the tasting sheet. So we've got the last bottles of these in Auckland. So yes, if you can, anyone got any questions as to what they've got, send me a message directly. Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome. Okay, I will tell you shortly the story of this wine. The name of the wine is Zucardi Alluvional. Let's come back a lot of slides. A lot. That is alluvional. Alluvional is the Spanish word for alluvial. So in 2011, we released the 2008 vintage, which was the first one of this wine. And this was the first wine in the history of our winery where we didn't put the variety on the label. If you see the label, if you can, you have your pictures there, but the label says Zucardi Alluvional and the place. In this case is Paraje Altamira, which is the region, not Malbec, not variety. For that time, that was crazy in Mendoza, and everybody was thinking that Sebastián Zucardi was insane, but he wasn't insane because the wine was a success. And the picture, the design of the label is an alluvial fan, because we thought that we wanted to make a wine with Malbec, because it's Malbec, from the different sub-regions of the Uco Valley to express the diversity, to express the identity of every place. So if we came back again to this map, some of you have the Paraje Altamira, the orange part on the left. Some of the other people have the Gualtallarí, which is Tupungato Alto, the green part here. So we wanted to express the identity of the different places. Every year we make 3 different alluvional from 3 different places. Mostly Gualtallarí, Paraje Altamira, and Los Chacalles. The grape is always Malbec. The fermentation is more or less the same. In this case, it's concrete tank fermentation in these tanks, and then it goes to aging some of the wine in the amphora and some of the wine in the big foudres for at least 1 year. And the idea is to express the identity of every place. I will explain a little bit the Paraje Altamira first. Paraje Altamira is the place. Is the same.
Sorry, Martina. Can I just stop you for 1 second? My apologies, folks. We've just double checked it, and it is the opposite to what I told you. My apologies. We thought colours were going to help us, but clearly not. So if you have the white label, you have Altamira. Red label, it actually says Tupungato Alto on the label. So it's just that the white label doesn't say what it is. So my apologies, but it's that way round. Sorry, Martin.
Good, thank you. Well,
always going to be a trick, this one.
The Paraje Altamira one is coming from the same area that the Concreto, for example, and the Piedra Infinita is the same region, is where we have the winery. So we are like based in Paraje Altamira. That's the South Uco Valley. And it's 14 was a cold mid-rainy season. And we try to express again this expression of the Malbec coming from the stony soil, from the calcareous soil. So you can find this fine texture in the wine. The aromatic is really complex, but it's like a closed nose. But the beauty of this wine is in the mouth, how it shows the different layers of texture. That is what we think that comes from this soil selection in this area. For the people that have the Tupungato Alto, I have both here, so I'm really lucky, but the Tupungato Alto shows a totally different expression of the Malbec, which is the concentration. Tupungato Alto or Gualtallarí is a place where we can reach more concentration in the grape. The amount of tannin is higher in the skins of the grape. You can feel it when you taste the grape. And of course, in the wine, the concentration of the tannin is different. So in Altamira, you have texture, but in Tupungato Alto, you have a structure. Both are 14s, but if you can compare them, the Tupungato Alto seems younger than the Altamira. And if you ask me, the Tupungato Alto will last longer than the Altamira because it's a more powerful wine, it's more concentrated.
Wow.
Another wow.
That's so good. I
Thank
haven't
you.
tasted the full range for a little while, and it's just reminding me of just the elegance that you can get in the wines. You've got all this power, but there's an elegance and a finesse to them, and then this lovely minerality on the end. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Every time that I go to when I am at the winery and I bring some visitors to that cellar that you're looking at the picture, I say to them that Argentinian wines are a challenge for ourselves because you mentioned that before. We are drinking the wines just too young, too early. These kind of wines can live long time. We are creating aging Malbecs. Long-aging Malbecs or long-aging wines. The Uco Valley is the special place for creating this kind of wine that is not normal for Argentinian wine. Again, this is not the classic chewy or dense Malbec that you may have tasted before, that will not last as long as these ones, because the key is good tannin structure, but you can have a good structure without dense concentration, and the other key is to have a good acidity. So if you harvest early at the right point, you keep the natural acidity, you select your soils, you understand the places and how the vine reacts to the places, then you can create this kind of wine. So when I said at the beginning that there was a revolution in Argentinian wine, I was meaning this. These are wines that we couldn't dream about 15 years ago. It's really exciting for us.
Excellent.
1.5 hours.
You've done very, very well, Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So we might do is just get you to, if you could drop the presentation down, then we will be able to see on the screen. That'd be lovely. And then if anyone has some questions for Martin or any comments at this stage. We've had some lovely comments going through.
Please only tell me the good ones.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, perhaps while everyone sort of thinks of some questions there, just some thoughts from me to perhaps wrap up the tasting, and then we can have any more questions there. I think, firstly, thanks, Martin, and also one for...
Alcohols.
Yeah, alcohols when you're ready. Yeah, thank you very much for putting this tasting on this afternoon. I think, you know, what a wonderful exploration of soils. Always, I find that fascinating, so I've very much appreciated that. Thank you, Martin. And also,
you're really welcome.
Yeah, before we jump into the questions, also just want to share with everyone that's online today that, you know, like Zaccardi, Glengarry is also a family-owned company, and we do have Jack with us this afternoon. So I think I'll unmute you there, Jack. So Jack's joined us there, and Jack's the current owner of Glengarry Martin. So lovely to have you along with us, Jack. Thank you for joining us.
I'd just like to thank you all for jumping on a Saturday afternoon when we finally got some nice weather here in Auckland and New Zealand. Could be out in the garden, but it's been a fascinating story, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you for sharing the story. My roots are in the soil too. I spent 30 odd years growing grapes and making wine, and it's wonderful to hear your story and to see the great work that you're doing over there, and just keep it up. It's excellent. We are very fortunate to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor here in New Zealand, and look forward to seeing so many more different expressions from your wonderful vineyards here in New Zealand in the future. So we're very proud to represent your wines here in New Zealand and bring them to our shores. A small country, but we'll drink our share. Don't you worry about that. So thank you.
Cool, thanks, Jack. And just another point from me, as I said at the beginning, we'll send you out a wee follow-up after this, which has an offer in it around the wines. So that will come out in the next couple of hours. We'll just download the recording of a tasting so that you've got that as well. And for those who are in Auckland, we of course are still in level 3, but we do have click and collect available from all of our stores. Regan's been in the tasting this afternoon as well, so please feel free to also email him directly if you'd like any assistance with purchasing after the tasting. For those who are in Wellington, the doors of our stores are open, so we're in level 2 there. And back to those who are in Auckland, we are doing delivery, and we are doing that via our own fleet. So we are couriering around the country, and that's working very well, but no couriers in Auckland at the moment because there's a few delays there. So we have our own fleet running and all ready to go. And as Jack said, we just want to really thank you for your support. It's been fantastic to have everyone out this afternoon. And it really does mean a lot to us to have your support, and particularly through the delightful times that we're living in at the moment. So thank you very much. And I think just any questions for Martine, you can probably unmute yourself if you'd like to, if anyone's got any questions. Otherwise, thank you once again.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.
Pleasure.
We hope to make Zuccardi a name that's synonymous with quality wine from Argentina.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Actually, I did fail to mention, and we've just got some people saying this sort of format of tasting is fantastic. We have a cognac tasting on Tuesday night, and we have the team from Leroux in Bordeaux, so in Cognac, dialing in to join us. On Wednesday night, we have a Pinot Noir tasting, and we have 8 winemakers from around New Zealand joining us. So that will be a logistical challenge to get 8 winemakers presenting together. And then moving forward, 2nd of September, I don't believe this is on our website yet. It might just be there. But there is a new release from Ardbeg, and it's called Wee Beastie. And it's a very exciting new release, and we will be hosting a tasting from Scotland. So it'll be the first tasting of that very exciting whiskey here in New Zealand, and that'll be on the 2nd of September. So lots of tastings coming up virtually. So they'll all be up on our website.
Gracias, Martín. Muchas gracias por todo. La verdad que es muy lindo y bueno, me encanta el Malbec.
Bueno, me alegro mucho. Gracias. Gracias.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you all, folks. So, very good. Thanks, Martín. Thanks, Juan.
Perdóname, Martín, no te escuché porque justo estaba en silencio, no te escuché. ¿Qué dijiste?
No, que muchas gracias, me alegro que les haya gustado, gracias por la atención y por la paciencia.
No, por favor, no, la verdad que buenísimo. Y amo Zucardi, me copa. Así que bueno,
Bueno, me
gracias.
alegro. Habrá que seguir
Muchas
entonces.
Muy
gracias.
buen
Gracias,
inglés,
che.
La verdad que espectacular, La verdad que tu
No,
inglés
lo
buenísimo.
tengo oxidadísimo.
No,
Bueno, gracias.
para nada, increíble.
Bueno, me alegro mucho. Muchísimas gracias.
Dale, chao, hasta luego.
Thank you,
Adiós.
Liz. Thank you very much for the
Very
opportunity.
good. Thank
I
you.
hope all of you
Okay.
enjoy the tasting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Juan. Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Hope
Liz.
to
It
be
was a
there soon.
pleasure.
Excellent. Okay. We'll see you later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.